Hi, friends. Welcome to the Pulse recording. We have 45 updates for you this week. So, Tamara, kick us off. What's in development?
Fabulous. Microsoft Teams presenter mode controls to move and resize presenter video. This is awesome, especially if you have very important information in your PowerPoint presentation. So presenter mode video controls enable presenters to move and resize the presenter video feed and automatically adjust content size accordingly. This can be applied to all modes on desktop or window sharing, including standout, side by side, and reporter. Good news is that's supposed to be released in April of this year to worldwide GCC High, and the DoD.
Everybody gets that one.
Everybody gets a something. So
So
that was the one that I was most excited about.
I saw one that kind of is interesting to me, and that's the Microsoft Viva. They're not going to have an inspiration library in Microsoft Viva Insights. So basically, the new feature is going to be in preview. And when it gives you these insights that you can turn into action, which is like, hey, you should do XYZ, that's fine. But a lot of times you're thinking, and why should I do that? Well, now they're going to give you access to curated content and best practices from top sources like Harvard Business Review and Thrive. I think that's a really good way to take the recommendations and back them up with solid research that people can read, get additional insights, and then internalize it and actually take action on it. So I think that's a really good thing.
Well, I like one a lot. I think we've talked about this before, but since I like it a lot, I'm going to say it again. Sharepoint automatically build visualizations of library metadata with Power BI. Really cool. So it's going to enable customers to visualize the metadata in a document library in a Power BI report. They can also save the report so that future visitors to the document library can view it. So very cool. All the magical updates and stuff like that. So
do you have any idea about the licensing behind that?
I'm sure
I
Power
know
BI
it's
licensing.
listed. Yeah, okay.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm not sure. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I would assume Power BI licensing for that. That would be my assumption.
Okay.
But you know what they say when you assume. So I should have said I don't know.
Well, I know that's come out to commercial, and this one is targeted for DoD, GCC High, and GCC. So it seems like they're getting the same thing the commercial had.
Yeah.
So
Okay, great.
But so happy to see it. So yay!
Yeah.
All
Adam.
right.
I have three nerdy things. I'm sorry.
Go, Adam. Go,
Adam.
We'll go through some of the nerdy things. So first and foremost, this is actually a really cool one. The explanation is like wonk. It's a huge one on there. But what it is Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, Communication Compliance, Day Zero Insights, recommended policy action. So that's a mouthful. But what this basically means with the recommended policy actions, we've talked about it before. The Communication Compliance Center is largely focused on internal compliance actions for your company, such like looking for harassment, sexism, stuff like that, racism talk. What the recommended policy actions essentially going to do is, even if you haven't gone through and tweaked all of those things and put them in place, Microsoft is proactively going to be looking for stuff and recommending stuff that you could put on as a company. And so I think this is one of the cool areas of development that we've seen in the communication compliance or compliance area as a whole, of ways for companies to proactively protect themselves. But up until now, if you wanted that protection, you had to go in and configure it. Cool if you know what you're going through and doing, but how many companies actually care enough to be watching the Office 365 roadmap and going through and doing all the new things? So the fact that they're going to be recommending actions for people to turn on over, again, one of the things that I think is a great way to protect yourself as a company. And like, let's be real, like, if there is employees being like a racist, misogynistic asshole to someone else, like him being stopped doing that is probably a good thing for everyone. Well, I should say him. Them being stopped will be equal here. Them being stopped doing that is probably a good thing. So the fact that they're automating some of that and going to give recommended policy actions is really cool. Secondly, another one that I really like, this is only on Excel right now, but this has huge ramifications. Microsoft Information Protection apply default label policies to existing documents being edited. So the reason this matters, if you go through and you apply automatic labeling policies and go through and do stuff. Right now, by default, it's for all new documents that go through and be turned on. So you can go through and say, all right, I want you to go through and mark documents as having this label. And how the order of operation works is when someone goes through to upload a document, it puts that label on it. But if you already are a very established customer in SharePoint and have your documentation already built out, you still at some point are going to have to go back and touch those documents that apply the labels where it matters. This is an update saying, at least for Excel files, they will proactively go back and apply it to old documents as well too. Would love to see this eventually expand out to everything, not just Excel. But so happy to see that. And then the final one that I wanted to look at that I thought was actually pretty cool is actually a series of them. There's several new updates coming to Microsoft Defender for Office 365. They're making alert policies a little bit better about stuff like potentially malicious URLs being clicked, anti-malware policy notifications, mail latency reports, basically all the alerting that's built into the Office 365 Defender for Office 365 Defender, which is essentially the one related that used to be ATP. It's the stuff related to proactive like mail protection and stuff that you would get. They're just making those alerts better, which is just always good to see. Always good to see new development there.
Very cool. Well, I don't have anything else in development. Tom or Tamara, do you guys?
Rolling out.
All right. Tom, take us to rolling out.
So one of the ones, and this isn't going to probably apply to very many people, but for those of us who play this role, it's going to be really nice. Administrators are going to be able to export Teams lists as a CSV file from the Teams admin center. It's nice to have all that stuff in the admin center, but if it's like click for next 10, click for next 100, and you're just having to go back and forth, it just really doesn't give you the ability to do much with that information. Being able to get it from a CSV file, turn it into Excel, fold, spindle, mutilate, awesome, and it's going across the board, DoD, GCC, GCC High, and worldwide.
Microsoft Forms increasing the response quota for forms to 5 million. To 5 million responses. So that's not going to work really to export it to Excel because there'll be 5 million responses. But you will be able to export the results to a CSV file for analysis. And that's rolling out worldwide, GCC, GCC High, and the DoD.
All you have to do is come up with a poll that can generate 5 million responses.
And then, Jen, do you have one?
I was going to say the enable contents types. So SharePoint enable content types from modern library views. So just being able to do that directly from the library in a modern SharePoint site is going to be happy day for a lot of people. So excited to see that getting modernized. So happy to see that coming. I think a lot of people are just going to be happy about that. And that is coming in the worldwide cloud.
I have one nerdy one, then one I think there's a chance I may disagree with some people on this group out. So I'm going to throw out there just to see if we get to argue. But the one nerdy one that I'm excited about first and foremost is out-of-box assessments for non-Microsoft 365 assets for the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. They have these wonderful premium assessments where you go through and do stuff to everything you need to do inside of Office 365 for compliance. But as I'm sure you can imagine, there are many things for most companies that exist outside of the borders of Office 365. Crazy, I know. This is Microsoft's way of trying to extend help to some of those assets as well. It's templates and stuff you can download that you can then go and fill out for some of your assets outside of 365 that will still follow the same format of what you're doing in Compliance Manager. So as someone who about 80% of my customers have some sort of compliance they have to do, pretty cool to see and see that going and moving on in the timeline. All right, now hopefully we get a fight. How do y'all feel about large folder deletion? OneDrive has now the ability, or soon it's rolling out, the ability to delete large folders of up to 10K items.
I didn't even know that was a thing before. So when I read this, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, inherently, it's just new functionality. As an admin, this terrifies me.
Yeah, because if they delete 15, 30, 50,000 items, guess who has to restore it?
Exactly, and how much time they like. Don't get me wrong, like I'm mixed on this because like at the same time, before if someone had a legitimate need to delete 10,000 items, they would have had to put in a request, and then the admin would have had to go and do it, which is annoying and was extra work to begin with. But I don't know that I fear that more than, oh, suddenly all my 8,000 documents is gone. I wonder what happened, and that being my job to go back and restore them.
So does it help though the fact that this is deleting large folders? So you'd have a folder that had 15,000 items in it. They delete the folder. Wouldn't it show up in the recycle bin as a single entity, that one folder?
Theoretically, yes, it should be, and you could go in and restore it that way. Although, how long would it take to restore all those files?
There is that, however.
I mean, yes, theoretically, it does help.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I don't trust end users as far as I can throw them, and I cannot throw people very far.
I have 3 words. Mistakes will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I'm running into now is organizations are encouraging people to get rid of their shared drives. And people have heard this as, oh, I must get rid of my shared drive. That means I must move it to my OneDrive. Number one, that's wrong. If you have documents that you're sharing with other people, if you have project documents, if you have business critical documents, they do not go on your OneDrive, because when you leave the organization, those documents leave the organization too.
Very true.
So I have, in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten calls from 10 people who have actually moved shared drives to their OneDrive, and now they've figured out their mistake and they've corrected their mistake. But now they have to go to the root of that folder and delete everything that's in the farthest down folder and slowly claw their way up to the top. So
Yeah,
I'm a little excited for this.
I still have PTSD because no one knows how to use the OneDrive sync client properly, and they go in and they sync like whole SharePoint lists to their computer, and then decide, oh, I don't want this anymore. But they don't then go back to the sync client, decide to unsync it. They just delete everything.
Delete it,
and then, oh, why is my entire SharePoint list gone?
Yeah, we've all had that issue, and we'll have it for the rest of our working careers.
But that's what I'm saying. So that same type of anxiety, Tom, worries me a little bit about this update. Like, again, like I shouldn't say we should fight about this, because like this is probably a good thing. It's more functionality to the users, and if you're educating them properly and have a good governance solution in place, that should all be good things. But I am of the mind that you get a lot of ID10T errors when you're working with end users, and mistakes happen.
Well, in their defense, they were hired to do a particular job, and technology was not that particular job.
See, y'all are so cute because y'all are acting like y'all have never done it. I've done it. I've deleted I deleted the whole internet once with my files, but I got them back before anyone noticed, except for James. James noticed. James noticed and went, "What did you do?" So our help desk guy's calling me, and I'm going, "Hi."
Oh, too funny.
So
I'm just gonna toss one more out here real quickly before we move on to launched. And that is for Microsoft Teams, you're going to have chat filters for non-meeting chats. So if you're trying to do a lookup or find something in chats, you're going to get your personal chats, which is maybe what you want, but you're also going to get meeting chats. You're going to get chatbot chats. And like, don't want all those. You're not going to be able to filter those out. So that's really good. That should have been out yesterday, but that should be rolling out to a client near you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. How about launched? Who wants to cover those? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll toss one out really quickly. There's not too many in there. Yeah, and there's all ones that we've talked about before, but Microsoft Teams roaming bandwidth control. If you have people who are working in areas that have really poor bandwidth, you're now going to have roaming bandwidth control in Teams, which means that it's now going to take into account the fact that you're not sitting there on a gigabit line with all this stuff coming in. It's going to have to make some accommodations. So keep an eye open for that. It should be in a launch state, and that went from worldwide and also GCC.
great. I've got Microsoft Teams live captions for anonymous or guest users. So anonymous and guest users are now able to view live captions in Teams meetings on desktop. I am so glad that Microsoft is making this easier. And I gotta tell you that the translation, the voice to text that they're using, really good.
Yeah, it is.
I am amazed. Even with
That's
people
awesome.
where English is not their first language, they're doing a really good job. And I think it actually helps not only people who are hard of hearing, but people who English is not their first language, or just those people who are, let's call it multitasking. And they can go back and instead of going, I'm sorry, I know that was a question directed to me, but I didn't care enough to pay attention to you. So they can scroll up in the transcript and they can get that information without looking like a complete idiot.
Cool.
I'm just impressed you think they'll scroll up and look for the information and not just out themselves as an idiot.
She's adorable, Adam. That's all we can say.
Awesome. Well,
I don't have anything for my side.
okay, well, me either. So then in canceled, we have Yammer send live event calendar invite. So they had one on there that was going to send a calendar event to all community members without leaving the event page in Yammer. They have delayed this and said they will add it back when the schedule has been determined. So that one is being canceled and removed from the roadmap for the time being. So this is all that we have this week. We will have to pay attention because next week is the Sharepoint conference North America.
Right, it is, isn't it?
So we might see some goodies hit the roadmap. Maybe.
Yay.
So we'll see if we see anything hit the roadmap next week. If not, maybe the week after. But we'll see what we have coming. So
Sounds good.
Perfect.
we'll be back with you guys next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.